All right, just checking the screen. Stream here. All right, Khan. All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakodash. Yahweh is the true, holy, and powerful name of the Heavenly Father. Bahashem, meaning in the name. Yahweh Shai is the true, holy, and powerful name of his only begotten Son, who is the Savior of the nation of Israel, starting off with the elect within the nation of Israel. And Israel consists of you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, as well as your Israelite foreigners scattered abroad that may look like the nations where you've been scattered to, but are Israelites. And I also want to give double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect, pushing out this word in all sincerity and in truth. All right, this is the brother you call from the GMS branch out of Des Moines, Iowa, coming back at you with another lesson inspired by the Holy Spirit, Habakkuk Wadash. All right, and as you see in the title, all right, daily life and duties of a medieval king. All right, and this is actually inspired through a conversation, all right, that we were having at class last night, and when we think about rulership and being a king, a lot of people are automatically, we automatically at times, just think about the glory of it. Just think about the pleasures of being a king, or whether it be, woman, riches, and so on and so forth. Which those things aren't evil. It's not wicked. All right, done in righteousness, of course, but there's a lot of work and responsibility, all right, that goes behind being a king. All right, and if we're becoming a nation of kings and priests, all right, the Lord is really preparing us for those roles and the different experiences that we go through in our daily lives. All right, the things that situations that we're put in, we have to move in the mentality of remembering that we're kings and that we're going through training. All right, and it goes beyond, okay, it goes beyond those pleasures and so on and so forth. There's a lot of responsibility and management that goes behind being the king. So, through the spirit, I was meditating on that. Like I said, we spoke about it at class, and I ended up coming across this article today as I was doing some research, thinking about that topic. And really, what I want to highlight in this lesson is the responsibility, all right, behind wearing the crown, and how a king must have proper management skills. All right. So there's things in the scriptures as far as conduct, decision making, all right, outside of course the things of not eating pork and not committing adultery. That's really important. All right, really important for us to make sure that we're carrying ourselves according to, which is all found in the Holy Scriptures. All right, we don't want to dismiss those things. All right, being a proper manager over our own household, our own kingdom, so to speak. All right, comparing our household into that. We don't want to neglect those things as well. All right, it goes beyond just us doing lessons and so on and so forth. But without further ado, I want to go ahead and start off with this precept in the Book of Wisdom of Solomon, the 6th chapter. So let me go ahead and pull this up. All right. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 6, and the last two verses. All right, Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 6, and verse 24 says, "But the multitude of the wise is the welfare of the world, and a wise king is the upholding of the people." All right. So there's a lot that is on the shoulders of a king. All right, I'm gonna read this again. But the multitude of the wise is the welfare of the world, and a wise king is the upholding of the people. So the king is responsible for upholding, all right, millions. Let's say you got over 1 million people in your kingdom. Well, it's up to the king to manage the resources. All right, it's up to the king to manage different affairs and so on and so forth. All right, the king isn't just laid up all day with a whole bunch of women. All right, like the brother used the example, just sitting there eating, being fed grapes. All right, the for days on end. Nah, there's a lot of affairs that the king has to make sure that he's managing. He can't be given over unto pleasure. All right, and the scriptures warn us of that. Okay, and as we go through our daily lives and so on and so forth, remember, as the scripture says, you know what? I'll go ahead and grab it. I was gonna wait until later on. All right, but go ahead and hit it right now. Let's just get one. All right, this is the book of Luke, chapter 12, and verse 48. It says, "But he that knew not and did commit things worthy of stripes shall be beaten with few stripes. For unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall be much required. And to whom men have committed much, of him they will ask the more." All right, so there's a lot that's required of a king. Okay, there's a lot that's required of that, man. All right, so our people walking around saying they're kings and priests and or saying that they're kings and this and that and the third, but there's a lot of responsibility that's behind it. There's a lot of discipline that's behind it. Okay. And we're learning to implement these things in our lives so that when we're placed in a position of rulership, all right, we have that mindset, okay, of knowing how to allocate resources, of knowing how to treat people properly according to the royal law, as the scripture says, man, right? The scriptures teach us how to manage these different things, starting off with our daily lives and our affairs and our own personal finances and so on and so forth, right? But let's hit this in the book of Sirach before we go into this article. All right, the book of Sirach, chapter. Well, let me read this again. Wisdom of Solomon 6 and 24. But the multitude of the wise is the welfare of the world, and a wise king is the upholding of the people. Receive therefore instruction through my words, and it shall do you good. So, since we recognize that we're going to be in a position of rulership and authority, right? Well, we have to make sure that what, man, that we're taking heed unto these instructions because we have King Solomon, one of the wisest kings, all right, the wisest king to walk this earth, all right. And in his kingdom, in his rulership, people were at peace, they were in joy, as Lord's will we may get later on, all right. But it was through what? Through wisdom, all right. It was through him applying the instruction of the precepts, being prudent, all right, managing his affairs, and so on and so forth, man. He dealt with great prudence and wisdom. All right. He had different governors that were over certain areas, right? They were bringing provision for his household month to month, right? So he was ordering everything in a proper way. Okay. He wasn't just out there just sitting on the throne and enjoying pleasure the entire time. Nah. All right. He put systems in place that was going to be efficient. All right. That was going to be best for the masses of the people that he was governing, man. Right. And we're learning once again, we're learning these different traits and characteristics in our lives right now. All right. But let's hit this in the book of Sirach, the 10th chapter, Sirach chapter 10 and verse 1. We'll start at the top here. Sirach 10 and 1. It says, "A wise judge will instruct his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered." All right. So it starts off saying a wise judge will instruct, all right, his people. Okay. Now let's hit this in the blue letter real quick. All right, because the scriptures talk about in the book of First Corinthians. All right, First Corinthians chapter 6. Okay, because we're gonna read it. First Corinthians 6 and 2. It says, "Do ye not know that the saints shall judge the world?" All right, so we're gonna judge the world. All right, we're gonna judge these other heathens, right? And us, Adawan Ratazah, being of the elect, will be a part of judging the 12 tribes of Israel, as the scriptures talk about. Now, with judgment, it's not just determining if somebody's going to be put to death or not. All right, that's a lot of things, we might immediately think of. All right, if you're going to judge if somebody's going to, you know, perish or not, be killed or not over a certain offense or whatever the case it may be. But it's also what, man, judgment is determining if somebody's going to be put in a position of rulership. All right, so as we get into the kingdom of heaven, we're going to determine which heathen is going to be over this heathen or whatever the case it may be, man. Who's going to be a wise king, all right, amongst the heathen that's going to govern according to our laws, all right, that's going to institute, yeah, our laws are among them, right? We're going to allocate resources. How much resources are we going to give over to this land? All right. How much resources do we need to allocate over here and so on and so forth, man? We're going to be in charge of making all of these decisions. Okay. Making all these decisions, right? So, what we're doing in our everyday lives, man, we're being exercised in proper decision making. We're getting experience in when we made bad decisions, why it was a bad decision. Okay, what should we have done? So that's why different things that we go through in our everyday lives, we shouldn't just brush over it, because the Lord is strategically allowing us to go through these different experiences so that we can learn these various lessons, man. Okay. But it says, do you not know that the saints shall judge the world? And if the world shall be judged by you, are ye unworthy to judge the smallest matters? That's right. So we have to reflect in ourselves, all right, and see if we're being a proper judge over our own affairs and our own resources, man. All right, the scriptures talk about, let's grab this real quick. And the brother quoted this last night when we were speaking, man. All right, it says, this is the book of Luke, chapter 19 and verse 17. It says, and he said unto him, and he said unto him, well, thou good servant, because thou hast been faithful in a very little, have thou authority over 10 cities. So if we're faithful over the little amount of province, so to speak, that we have, all right, imagine you being a ruler and you've been given a small province to govern first. All right. And then the ruler is looking at how you're governing that province. He's seeing that the people are well ordered. All right. He's seeing that wickedness isn't flourishing. You're dealing with wickedness immediately, and so on and so forth. All right. So then the king may be like, you know what? Let me allot him a greater region to govern, because I can entrust him to take care of these various affairs. Well, the same thing with our everyday lives. So if we want to be if we want to be rulers in the kingdom of heaven and have authority over these cities, all right, as the brother used the example last night, why would the Lord grant us, all right, all these cities and a government over tens of millions of people, okay, when we're lacking complete discipline, right? We don't know how to allocate our resources, all right, terrible management, all right, self-governments and so on, governance, and so on and so forth, right? So these are things that we have to consider. Now, of course, in the kingdom of heaven, we're going to have new bodies, all right, and we're going to be changed. You know, every decision that we make is going to be perfect. It's going to be in line with the will of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, but we're being built and groomed into that right now. Okay, we're being built and groomed into the image of Yahweh Shai to govern properly, man, through the experiences that we're going through now. So reading this again, and he said unto him, well, thou good servant, because thou hast been faithful in a very little, have thou authority over 10 cities. So we want to have the mentality of being faithful, and what we have right now in the little governments that we have right now, which could just be you and your household, all right, or you might not even have a family or children that you have to, govern, and so on and so forth. Your position within the camp, you know, being able to properly govern within that. All right. Or once again, first and foremost, governing ourselves. All right. Let me discipline myself to get up at a decent time. Right. Even a king, a king, he couldn't lay in bed all day. All right. A king had affairs that he had to attend to. Okay. If a king got too wasted the previous night, all right, and was all drowsy and got this and slept in, for hours on end, as we're gonna read in the article, King was getting up early. He had councils that he had to deal with. All right. He had matters that he had to judge. Right. He had different things that he had to do. So you had people that were waiting on him, that were coming, expecting him to be there at the the round table, so to speak, to discuss different matters. All right. He had different um what's the different people within his kingdom that were going to come to him and tell him the status of the finances. All right, tell him the status of the kingdom, tell him the status of the military, and so on and so forth. Speaking about how much resources need to be allocated here for the army and everything like that. He had to be clear minded, man. All right, he couldn't just sit there and miss those councils days on end, right? He could cause the people within the kingdom to get disgruntled, and so on and so forth. So there was a lot on the king's shoulders, man. All right, he didn't have the luxury of doing whatever he wanted, even though at times, because of how they push it in the media, they show you the glamour and the fame and the sweet stuff behind being the king, but they don't always talk about the discipline that went behind it, the years of education and studying, and so on and so forth. Let me hit this in the book of Galatians. As a matter of fact, all right, because the king was raised in nobility, all right, to be very disciplined. He was being brought up to learn different languages, to study history, all right, to know the affairs and the history of different kingdoms and so on and so forth, so that he can make proper judgments. And this is what King Solomon prayed for, man. He prayed for wisdom so that he could judge properly, all right, so that he can make those proper decisions, all right, so that he can govern properly, so he can allocate resources properly, so that he can make proper decisions that were in line with the Heavenly Father, and that was going to allow the kingdom to be at peace. All right. And that's the same thing that we're being exercised in as well, man. On top of balancing out personal affairs and personal relationships and so on and so forth, man. All right. This is the book of Galatians, chapter 4:1. Now I say that the heir, as long as he is a child, deferreth nothing from a servant, though he be Lord of all, but is under tutors and governors until the time appointed of the Father. Okay. So what? We're under tutors and governors, right? So that what, man? We can be prepared to take on the role of sitting on a throne. All right. So that training is the process that we're going through right now, as well as being trained in the priesthood. All right. And so on and so forth, man. So the Lord is doing a lot with us in our everyday lives, man. Everything is a benefit some way, somehow, to get us closer to the image of Yahweh Shai, so that we can do these things effectively. Okay. But that's it in that Galatians. Now I want to go ahead and let me see if there was anything else I wanted to mention in that. All right, yeah, let's go ahead and go into this article. So this is the article. This is the article from the website, as you see here, knightstemplar.co. Okay, it says daily life and duties of a medieval king. And we're going to jump around in this article. I'm not going to read the entirety of it, but it's a pretty good article. It says, for centuries, tales of medieval kings have pervaded our literature, cinema, and imagination, often painted as grandiose figures leading glorious battles, enjoying lavish feasts, and ruling with an iron fist. While these portrayals capture some elements of the truth, the real life and duties of a medieval king were much more complex and intricate. This article invites you to step back in time and explore the daily life challenges and responsibilities that came with being a medieval king. From maintaining the kingdom's order and managing finances to the subtle art of diplomacy, being a king in the Middle Ages was not for the faint of heart. That's right, because you're dealing with all types of criticism. Every decision that you make, all right, is being criticized. Okay. Decisions that you make can be the life or death of your people, man. And throughout our history, you see kings making good decisions at times, and you see kings making decisions that cost men to die in battle in different wars. Okay, for the kingdom to split, right? Like even a prime example, you had Rehoboam, okay, who came after King Solomon. All right, King Solomon's son, right? Now it was all according to prophecy, but the kingdom split because he took the counsel, foolish counsel from the young men, as opposed to taking counsel from the wise men that were a part of King Solomon's council. And as a result, the kingdom split. So his decision making, all right, according to the movie, even though we know that it was going to happen according to prophecy already, was the cause of the kingdom splitting. All right, which changed the trajectory, so to speak, of our nation forever, man. We've been split since that decision, okay, so to speak. Now we know that it happened because of King Solomon, right? Him being rebellious and the kingdom split because of that. But in the movie, that decision is the reason why the northern kingdom split away from the southern kingdom and rebelled, man. And from that time forward, all right, we haven't been a nation together. So the weight of the decision of the king was very costly, all right, and couldn't be taken lightly. All right. So we have to be very mindful of the cost of our decisions, man. As we're going to read in this article, and it impacts the lives of the entire kingdom, man. But it says, from maintaining the kingdom's order and managing finances to the subtle art of diplomacy, being a king in the Middle Ages was not for the faint of heart. Prepared to delve into an era of knighthood, faith, power struggles, and royal duties that shaped the course of history. All right, so it says roles and responsibilities of a medieval king. Being a medieval king was a role steeped in responsibility and duty, and this is what a lot of people forget about. There's a lot of responsibility and duty. They want the riches, they want the honor, they want the glory, and so on and so forth, without taking on the responsibility and duties, that the kingdom that a king has to take on a daily basis, man. All right, the king was a servant to the people, as the scriptures talk about. He that is greatest among you. Let me go ahead and grab that. All right, greatest. This is Matthew 23 and 11. It says, but he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. So the one that's sitting in the highest seat, are really, he's a servant unto everybody. The king is really the servant to the kingdom. All right, a lot of people think about being a king and everybody's supposed to sit there and serve him, which you have people under subjection, under your rule, for the purpose of what? All right, to manage the affairs of the kingdom, not to just sit there and bark orders and so on and so forth, right? But there was a purpose, okay? There's certain affairs that needed to be handled and taken care of, man. All right, not to just sit on the throne and fulfill your pleasures all the time. All right, that's not what it was about. Now there was space and time to do all those things, right? But that wasn't the focal point of a king. And we have different examples of kings in history where their mindset was just focused on pleasure. All right. And then their kingdom, all right, that society, the people underneath them suffer because of the selfishness of the king and constantly fulfilling his pleasures, man. And this is why the scriptures tell us, man, to it talks about us resisting pleasures, man. Let me go ahead and grab that in the book of Sirach. All right. This is Sirach chapter 18 and verse I'm gonna start at verse 30. Go not after thy lust, but refrain thyself from thine appetites. If thou givest thy soul the desires that please her, she will make thee laughing stock to thine enemies that malign thee. And this is a fine line, all right, that a king had to make sure that he wasn't overtaken by. All right, because when you're as a king, you have access to all these different resources. He had access to all the women that he wanted at any time, right? At any point in the day, he could be like, you know what? Hey, bring me this woman, that woman, and he could fulfill his desire, his lust, right? He could eat whatever he wanted at any time. He had the people to come and serve him and bring whatever he wanted, right? But if he continued to give himself over unto that, all right, the kingdom would suffer. So he had to make sure that he was disciplining himself when he got in that position. And that's why a king was brought up with great discipline. So he would be already instilled in that. So when he got the access to those different things, all right, he wouldn't give himself over unto that position, all right, or give him over unto those different lusts, right? But it says, if thou givest thy soul to the desires that please her, she will make thee a laughing stock to thine enemies that malign thee. All right. It says, and I'm gonna jump down in Sirach 19 in verse 5. Whoso taketh pleasure in wickedness shall be condemned, but he that resisteth pleasures crowneth his life. All right. So that's why that discipline has to be there, man. All right. That discipline has to be there as a king and having rulership over a whole society, man. Okay. So let's read a little bit more in here. It says, a king was not merely a figurehead, but the ultimate authority in his realm, charged with maintaining stability, justice, and prosperity. His decisions impacted the lives of his subjects, from the highest ranking nobles to the lowest peasants. All right. So the king's decisions that he made, man, had an impact on the entire kingdom. So he couldn't just be careless with his decision making, man. And I want to grab a couple precepts just on that. All right, let's start off with this in Sirach 32 and 18. Let's see. All right, this is Sirach chapter 32. Bear with me. And verse 18. All right. It says, a man of counsel will be considerate. And this is how a king has to be considerate. Once again, he can't be careless with his decision making, man. All right. Can't be careless with decision making. So the same thing with us, man. You know, it might not seem like it has a direct effect, all right, on the life or death of an individual underneath us, all right, as it would in the with a king in certain aspects, but we should be walking with that mentality of knowing that every decision that I make should be calculated, should be deliberate. That's how a king had to move, man. And we have different examples of that, even with Esther, all right, in the book of Esther. All right, you had the king, I forget what it was Xerxes, all right? You had the king Xerxes, okay? The queen at the time, Vashti, he had called out to her to come meet him pretty much at a party when you read the totality of the count, and she didn't come. And I believe he called for her again and she didn't come again. All right. So in that in that situation, he had to make a decision on how he was gonna deal with Vashti. Now he could have loved her, cared about her, whatever the case may be, but when his counsel came, he was like, look, all right, the council was like, look, man, if you allow her to get away with this, the rest of the women, they're going to think that this is okay. So it was going to spread bad behavior for the woman to be rebellious and think that it was acceptable for the woman to rebel against their husbands, right? So he had to be careful about how he dealt with that decision on dealing with Vashti, man, because that was going to have an impact on his entire kingdom. Now you could think that, oh well, that's just him and his woman. He can do whatever, right? But he was considerate. His counsel came to him. He was considerate of like, nah, how does this look? How does this reflect? All right, on the mindset of my people with me making this decision. See, even kings, they could have different feelings that they had in certain times. They couldn't show certain emotions. They couldn't show certain feelings, man, because of the impact that it would have on the kingdom. There were certain times where a king could be in fear of a situation, but he had to withdraw himself from showing that fear, all right, for the sake of not causing fear to be spread amongst the people and panic amongst the people. So these are different things that a king had to be considerate of. He couldn't just do whatever you wanted, whatever you felt, and so on and so forth because of the impact that it had. And this is what we're being groomed into having this type of mentality as well, man. Understanding that we have to be considerate with our decision making. Now, this word considerate, well, let me finish the verse. A man of counsel will be considerate, but a strange and proud man is not daunted with fear, even when he of himself even when of himself he had done without counsel. Now, this word considerate, it says what? Marked by deliberation in the Edamon online. It says to look at closely, observe. And this is why you would notice that when a decision was being made, all right, he would have his counsel. Even King Solomon, the wisest king, he would have the last say so in the decision that was going to be made, but he took heed to the counsel around him. He had certain men around him that were sitting with King David at his table and giving counsel, right? So he was listening to the opinions of the men around him, man. All right. The scripture says, "Do nothing without counsel." So he wasn't just making decisions all the time, like I'm gonna just go do this, I'm gonna go do that, without considering what do you think we should do. All right. How should I move about this situation? You know, so that's something to be considerate as well, man. All right, but it says deliberate, prudent, given to consideration. So we have to be men of prudence. All right. A man of prudence is gonna what? Think about the various outcomes, weighing his options. All right. Thinking, is this gonna be good for the long run? All right. How's this gonna impact my kingdom? You know, how's this gonna impact me? And you know what I'm saying? Even with us, man, certain foods, you might recognize that, man, I'm eating a lot of greasy foods. Next thing you know, I'm lethargic. Me being lethargic is causing me to get up later. Now I'm less productive in the spirit. All right. You're considering all these things to where it's like, you know what? Let me nip this in the bud. Let me cut down on me eating certain foods that are making me lethargic. All right. Or let me cut down on going to sleep so late. All right. Because it's affecting me as a servant, right? These are all different things that we're calculating in our mind, right? But it says that's pretty much it. Well, let me read a little bit more. Meaning of not okay. It says meaning not unfeeling or rigorous, showing consideration for the circumstances or feelings of others, and that's the key thing. All right, of the circumstances and feelings of others. All right, so you had selfish kings, they didn't care about any of those things, man. And the scriptures talk about not being like that, man. As a matter of fact, let me see where I'm at. Go ahead and grab this precept here and calculate it. All right, yeah, we're gonna roll through a couple of these precepts. I want to make sure I hit them. This is the book of Philippians. Then we'll go back to that article. Chapter 2. What I spelled Philippians wrong. Chapter 2. All right, Philippians chapter 2 and verse 3, it says, "Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others." So we're being groomed into the mentality of a king. All right. The Lord has already been telling us, look, you have to consider other people, man. All right, you can't be consumed in how you feel and what you think, and and this and that and the third. You have to be willing to make sacrifices. All right, you have to be willing to, all right, do things that might not be comfortable, even though you're in a position as a king. All right, even on the throne. So yeah, you could use your exercise your authority. Now I'm gonna do what I want and this and that and the third, and have the subjects do all that, and whatever the case may be. But that's gonna cost your kingdom. All right. That's going to cause the people to be disgruntled. Right. And once again, we're learning to be in this mentality now. It says, look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Yahweh Shai Mashiach. All right. So this is how Yahweh Shai thinks. All right. He laid down his life, went through excruciating pain for his brothers. Right. Even with King David, him coming up, man, he risked his life for the sheep. And those were actual physical sheep, man. Okay. And then when he got in a position of authority, he had the mentality of what? A shepherd that was willing to lay down his life for the sheep, right? So this is the mentality that we're being groomed into having as well. Okay. But that's it in that Philippians. So let's go ahead and grab this in the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 17. Salaki, let me double check that. Deuteronomy chapter 17. Okay, cool. All right, so this is the book of Deuteronomy chapter 17, and I'm gonna scroll down to verse 14. All right. Deuteronomy 17 and 14, it says, "When thou art come into the land which the Lord Yahweh thy power giveth thee, and shall possess it, and shall dwell therein, and shall say, I will set a king over me, like as all the nations that are about me." Excuse me, it says, "Thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom the Lord Yahweh thy power shall choose. One from among thy brethren shalt thou set king over thee. Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brother." All right. It says, verse 16, "But he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt, to the end that he should multiply horses. For as much as the Lord Yahweh hath said unto you, ye shall henceforth return no more that way." All right. So he's not supposed to be multiplying all these things unto himself. And as we're going to read further into this, it's showing you he cannot have a mentality of being selfish. All right. Were you wicked if you had horses? Okay. In the ancient world? Of course not, man. But it's the mentality of looking for the benefit of the totality of the people. All right. The scriptures talk about woe to him that what does it say? House to house. Let me find that. That's the mentality of a selfish king. All right. All right. This is Isaiah chapter 5 and verse 8. Man. I'm gonna start at verse 7. "For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah his pleasant plant. He looked for judgment, but behold oppression, for righteousness, but behold a cry. Woe unto them that join house to house, that lay field to field, till there be no place, that they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth." So look at that selfish mentality. And this is how Esau does, man. All right. He puts these cities, all right, to where everybody's all the population is in one area, all right, just so that he can enjoy all the land and all the resources and so on and so forth. He's not looking for the benefit of people, okay? The benefit, the well-being, the so on and so forth of the kingdom that he has. He doesn't care about these people, man. He's poisoning them with the food, right? This devil could have it to where everybody is well off, man. There's enough land, all right, in the world, okay, to allocate it to all the people, so to speak, right? To where everybody wouldn't be all joined together. People could produce for themselves, could farm for themselves, and so on and so forth, man. Everybody can have free health care, right? But he doesn't care about the people. He's caring about consuming everything for himself. All right. Okay. He's a servant that's in rulership, man. All right. Lord's will we get the precept associated with that, man. But nah, you want a noble to be in rulership who was raised and brought up with the mentality of a noble and taking care of the well-being of the entire kingdom as opposed to a selfish, all right, devil like this one that we got in power right now, man. All right. Prices of everything is sky high, you know. This is complete oppression, man. All right. But anyways, it says well that's all I'll grab in that precept, man. So let me go back to this in the book of Deuteronomy 17 and verse 17. Neither shall he multiply wives to himself, that his heart turn not away, neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. Right. So this is going into a selfish mentality. He's consumed with fulfilling his pleasures and so on and so forth. Now we know multiple kings, righteous kings, have multiple wives. So it's not wicked, all right, to have multiple wives. But it's what, man? Not having a selfish mentality as far as this king sitting on the throne to where he's just consumed and fulfilling his lusts. Because once again, he has access to all these resources, but he still has to maintain taking care of all his responsibilities, man. As we're gonna go into more of those responsibilities in this article, man. It says, neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. And it shall be when he sitteth upon the throne of his kingdom that he shall write him a copy of this law in a book out of that which is before the priests, the Levites. And it shall be with him, right? So he had to understand the law so that he could judge according to the law, move in the fear of the Lord, as it's going to say, that he may learn to fear Yahweh his power, to keep all the words of this law and these statutes to do them, that his heart be not lifted up above his brethren, and that he turn not aside from the commandment to the right hand or to the left, right? So he's supposed to still maintain a mentality of meekness and humbleness. All right. Okay. Still having a care, a sincere care for the people in his kingdom, man. Right. Not ruling as a tyrant, right? But ruling in justice and equity, fair judgment, right? This is how a king is supposed to move. And once again, this is what we're being exercised in right now and learning in our decision making, in the situations in our everyday lives, man. All right. It says, to the end that he may prolong his days in his kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Israel. All right. And let me grab this in Second Samuel, then we'll get back to the article. Second Samuel, chapter 23 and verse 1. Now these be the last words of David. David, the son of Jesse, said, and the man who was raised up on high, the anointed of the power of Jacob. And the sweet psalmist of Israel said, the spirit of Yahweh spake by me, and his word was in my tongue. The power of Israel said, the rock of Israel spake to me. He that ruleth over men must be just, ruling in the fear of Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. So what we've been learning, all right, through these scriptures is the guideline, all right, on how to rule and how to govern, all right, what righteousness looks like, okay? We have a perfect example of Esau Edom, the result of ruling outside of these guidelines, man. So where we understand this is why this is the best way. This is why we need to rule according to these laws, man. This is how peace is going to be brought within a society. This is what's going to cause the people to be happy. All right, when you look at our laws, man, it's for the benefit of all the people, man. Okay, for the benefit of all the people, having a land Sabbath. All right, so then what? The earth can produce its fruits. All right, so then people are look at what that does for society, man. All right, just having a land Sabbath so that the people that are farming now they're producing more. So in today's terms, that's your bank account. All right, getting fuller, right? To where you ain't as tight, you ain't worried about bills and so on and so forth, man. Now you have a lot more free course to do more with your money, man. Okay, but if you aren't taking care of the land, all right, because of extracting all the resources as Esau has done, right? Now certain resources are going to be scarce at certain times, man. The earth isn't going to produce as much fruit. All right. You're going to deal with more droughts and more famines and so on and so forth, right? This is all the result of not keeping just one of the laws, man. All right. Here it is in our law. All right, if you were working for somebody, you're supposed to get paid before the sun goes down, man. You know? So that's going to benefit and make the people within the society happy, man. Certain judgments being dealt with, man, you know? Right? So this is supposed to bring forth peace. If you did have somebody that stole, all right, they had to return that and so on and so forth, man. So the laws are perfect, man. It's for the it's the best way to bring peace on earth, and that's why in the kingdom of heaven we're gonna rule according to this. All right, because this is the perfect way, man. All right, this is the perfect way, man. But anyways, hey, it's the book of life for a reason. All right. Hey, Yahweh said, "I come that you may have life and that you may have it abundantly." So when Yahweh returns, man, we're gonna have life and have it abundantly. But these rules have to be instituted, man, throughout the earth. All right. And to bring that throughout the earth and instill that in the minds of the people is going to be with a rod of iron. All right. you know? But anyways, it says that's it on that. All right, so let's go back to this article. Let's see. So it says let's see where we at. All right, his decisions impacted the lives of his subjects from the highest ranking nobles to the lowest peasants. The roles and responsibilities of a medieval king were many and varied, encompassing governance, war, diplomacy, religion, and more. All right, maintaining the kingdom's order. One of the primary duties of a medieval king was maintaining the kingdom's order. This responsibility was far reaching and multifaceted, encompassing law, justice, and peace within the kingdom. A king was responsible for establishing laws and ensuring they were enforced consistently. All right. So when you read throughout our history, all right, you might have a wicked king that was ruling prior. All right, then a righteous king comes, and what does he do? All right, he'll get rid of the sodomites out of all the land, get rid of all the witches, make sure that public judgment was being brought upon them, so it will put fear throughout the people, so that would be established. Like, look, we're gonna rule in. Hey, I'm ruling in the fear of the Lord, man. All right. So then wickedness was being suppressed. All right, you know, they was making things happen, man. And they had to constantly make sure that these things were being enforced because as you read throughout our history, all right, you might have a righteous king that's ruling, but as soon as he would get off the throne, what would happen, man? All right, they would go back into wickedness. All right, because the next person might not have been enforcing those things, man. You know? So that's why even within our own selves and governing ourselves, we have to make sure that we're holding ourselves in the fear of the Lord, enforcing these things within us consistently, man. All right. The scriptures talk about in the book of Sirach, the 19th chapter, Sirach chapter 19 and verse 1, it says, a laboring man that is given to drunkenness shall not be rich, and he that contemneth small things shall fall by little and little. And the same thing with a king on the throne. If he continues to contemn these small things that his council is bringing up, you know, over and over to him, man, his kingdom will begin to crumble piece by piece. All right. Will begin to crumble piece by piece, you know. So the same thing with our daily lives, man. We have to make sure that we're addressing certain things, man. You know, can't let things go unchecked, all right, all the time, man. You know, it's a balance with these things as well, man. See, even the king, he had to know when to exercise more mercy, all right, in a certain situation. He had to know when he had to bring down the hammer, all right, heavy, okay, maybe making a public example to bring more fear into people, you know. Then he might get lighter with his judgments, or so on and so forth, man. So he had to balance those different things out, right? But it says that's in that Sirach, the 19th chapter. So let's go back to the article. It says, let me see, a king was responsible for establishing laws and ensuring they were enforced consistently. These laws would cover a wide range of matters from land ownership and taxation to crimes and their punishments. All right. And I'm gonna skip this international diplomacy. You know, it's good points in it, you know, but I want to get a little bit more in this portion here, you know, before closing out. So it says managing finances. All right. While the image of medieval king often evokes grand castles, bountiful feasts, and splendid clothing, the reality behind these displays of wealth was a complex system of financial management. Managing the kingdom's finances was one of the critical duties of a medieval king, and it was far more complicated than simply collecting taxes and funding festivities. So it wasn't like you was a king sitting on the throne, all right, and everybody brought in a tribute, right? And you just sitting with this pile of money and you just doing whatever with it. You know, I'm gonna just make this castle full of all straight gold. Nah, man. All right, if you were a king and you got 400 servants, right? Well, you had to make sure that they had enough food, all right, that they were fully taken care of, every last one of those servants, right? you know, providing their clothing and different things like that, the tools that they needed to properly govern and serve, you know. Like I'm a part of managing a business, man. There's so many details that you just would completely overlook that goes into the functioning of a whether it's a restaurant or whatever the case may be, man. From the towels that's used, right? All right. There's a system to make sure that those are being washed properly. All right. Or on a consistent basis that you have it, you know, something as little as somebody forgetting to put in an order for napkins, all right, can have a huge effect on the whole restaurant for the week. All right. You might slip and forget to order this or that and the third, and those little things, all right, will add up to stopping the proper functioning of a kingdom. So all those things had to be taken care of, man. So when it comes down to, you know, us managing different things in our daily lives, man, those things cannot just be overlooked. All right. We would have to take care of those things, learning how to manage certain things, learning how to manage those resources, because when we're put in those positions, all right, to manage a kingdom, those things that you have to consider. All right. Certain amount of land that's allotted for you know, for cultivating certain fruits, all right, and this and that and the third, right? This is all different moving complex parts, all right, that go into being a king and managing these different resources, man. So it wasn't just sitting on the throne and collecting all this and, you know, blowing money, man. Nah, you had different kings in history that did that, all right, and the kingdom collapsed because of that. But yet this man was balling. All right. The one king was balling, you know, but everybody else suffering, begging, you know, catching hell, right? But this nigga just draped up and dripped out. All right, why everybody else suffering, man? When you look at King Solomon's kingdom, nah, everybody had was taken care of, man. All right, and that's how it's gonna be with us in the kingdom, man. But anyways, it says let me see. Managing the kingdom's finances was one of the critical duties of a medieval king, and it was far more complicated than simply collecting taxes and funding festivities. Taxation was a crucial source of income for the kingdom. It was typically levied on the king's subjects, the peasants, the nobility, and sometimes even the clergy. A king would usually have officials appointed for the purpose of collecting these taxes. These officials were often chosen from the king's trusted advisors, and their duty was to ensure that the king received his due. So even with that, you had to judge that properly, make sure that you had somebody in place that was going to be trustworthy, all right, that feared the Lord, you know, that wasn't going to steal and rob, all right. At times you had to make sure that you were doing your own checks and balances, you know, but you had to allocate these different responsibilities to different individuals, man. And you had to make sure that they were on top of their game and taking care of those different responsibilities, you know, and making sure that they're happy as well. All right, you might have one of your advisors, man. He works hard for you. All right, but you got him working 6 days out the week, man. No break at all. No rest. Right? you know, overworking him to now where he's burned out, man. You know, so you had to consider all these various different things, man. And make sure you take some time off. You know, rotating different employees, so to speak, in your kingdom. And these are all different things that you had to consider when you're sitting on the throne, man. But it says, let me see. Let me skip that part. All right. Treasury. I'm gonna go ahead and skip that. Okay. Now I'm gonna go into the daily life of a medieval king. It says being a medieval king was not just about sitting on a throne and wearing a crown. Instead, it was an active role that required physical, mental, and strategic prowess. Now, back in the ancient world, going back to our kings, man, they were involved in war, right? So they had to make sure that they were still physically fit and active. Okay. you know. Still, of course, they got to a certain point where they weren't going out to war like with King David. You know, King David got to a point to where they took him from the like, look, man, you almost got killed this last time. You know, hey, right, your quick step ain't as quick as it used to be. All right, make sure you sit on the throne, man. We got this, you know. But he was very active, man. All right, He was leading us out into war, into battles, right? So he was putting his life on the line. That's how our kings got down, man. You know, so just applying A in the spirit, man. Hey, just within our culture, as men, we had physical activity. All right. You were out in the field, you were farming, okay, you were taking care of the ox, you were doing some type of physical activity, or you were training to be able to make sure that you could survive in the war, all right, win battles and so on and so forth, man. So these are different things that hey, we should have in mind to, man, let me make sure that I am being active. These things have a good effect on our spirit, man. All right, the scriptures talk about how a wise man will have a care for his health and diet, roughly paraphrasing that, man. You know, scriptures talk about how your health is above all riches, right? So we got to make sure that our diet is good, you know. Of course, not eating anything unlawful, but hey, considering, hey, tailoring our diet to work for our benefit. Okay. What you put in your body can work towards your benefit to where you can be more beneficial in the spirit. All right. Certain times, if you get on a good, consistent workout routine, you'll notice that your mind is a little bit clear. It's not as foggy. You have more energy. You're more energized and excited to do certain things, hop in the spirit. You're not all lethargic. Woe is me, just because you started working out more, just because you tightened up on your diet. These are different things that, hey, we should be considerate of. All right. We are royalty. Okay. We are nobility. All right. But it says, let me see. All right, I'll read that. The king's daily life was a blend of administrative, or let me read this part again. Instead, it was an active role that required physical, mental, and strategic prowess. All right, the king's daily life was a blend of administrative duties, ceremonial tasks, political maneuvering, warfare planning, and social activities, all while managing personal relationships and obligations, right? So the king was very active in taking care of responsibilities, man. He had a lot on his shoulder, man. All right. Once again, man, hey, to whom much is given, much is required. All right. So us being kings, we should be shifting into a mentality of like taking care of business. All right. Business comes before pleasure. All right. That's just a result. All right. Or a plus. We was trying to think of the best word for it last night. I can't even remember. Because we talked about this last night. All right, but it's like a side benefit. But a king couldn't be just consumed in pleasure all day. Even though he had access to do all those things, he had to discipline himself. All right, he took care of the councils in the morning, took care of the judgment during the day. All right, first and foremost, hey, serving the Lord, right? Took care of all those things. Now he can exhale. All right, now he might ask, yeah, send over, somebody from the harem, give me a nice massage. All right, feed me a couple grapes. Now it's time to decompress. I done took care of all this business earlier today. Now I can decompress. All right. He wasn't waking up going straight into pleasure. All right. Nah, man. He was taking care of business first and foremost. As we're gonna read here, it says a typical day in the life of the medieval Salakia. Am I yeah, a typical day in the life of a medieval king would begin with the sun. Upon waking, he would attend a private mass conducted by his chaplain, as religion played an integral part in the daily life of all medieval individuals, especially the king. After attending mass, the king would usually meet with his personal advisors, often during a morning meal. This group, known as the king's council, would include his chancellor, treasurer, and potentially his steward or marshal, who would update the king on domestic and international matters. This was also the time when the king would make key decisions regarding the kingdom, such as settling disputes, making laws, issuing decrees, managing finances, or planning military campaigns. So you see, a lot is already on his plate. Okay, a lot of responsibility is on his plate, man. All right, I'm gonna continue to read on, and we're gonna hit some more precepts and close it out. It says, let me see. It says this was also the time when the king would make key decisions regarding the kingdom, such as settling disputes, making laws, issuing decrees, managing finances, or planning military campaigns. Following the morning meeting, the king would hold court. This could involve a public audience where he would receive foreign diplomats, listen to petitions from his subjects, or render justice in significant legal cases. evening rituals. The evening was a time for relaxation and recreation, but it also had its own rituals. After a day of hard work, the king would attend vespers, the evening prayer service. This would be followed by supper, which was often a grand affair. Unlike the relatively small and intimate morning meal, supper would be an opportunity to showcase the king's wealth and hospitality. Nobles, courtiers, and distinguished guests would join, turning the meal into a social event. And even in these very social events, all right, you might have a foreign diplomat that came in. All right, they're building a relationship, talking about political matters. All right, creating alliances. All right, might be discussing. Okay, I'm gonna make an alliance with this king over here. I'm gonna give him one of my daughters. All right, we're gonna come in agreement. We're gonna do business together, and so on and so forth, man. So the mentality of a king, a righteous king, will be about handling business. Okay, to take care of the entirety of his kingdom with the mentality of making sure that his subjects, his people, they were well taken care of, well off. When King David would go on the wars, different battles, and get different spoils, man, he was coming back giving spoils to different people here, different people there, allocating all those resources to make sure that the people were taken care of, man. He wasn't just stacking all that up for himself. All right, you know, he was a man, a righteous king, man. And that's why, hey, King David under Yahweh is coming back to rule over our nation again. All right, he's gonna rule the nation of Israel, man, with that righteous mentality. All right, but it says, let me see, and man, pretty much, man, there's a lot more in this article that you could read about, but just putting it into perspective, man. All right, so us with our daily lives, once again, bringing it back into how we're maneuvering as kings, all right, as priests, all right, we should have a certain business mentality. Even Yahweh Shai, he said, "Must you know? Don't you know that I must be about my father's business?" We got to take care of business before pleasure. Being a king sitting on the throne is not about fulfilling, or is not a freedom to just have that at all your heart's desires, all right, and not take care of business. Okay, but let me see what else I had. We read that Galatians. All right, let me read this in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 10. Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 17. It says, I'm going to start at verse 16. It says, "Woe to thee, O land, when thy king is a child and thy princes eat in the morning." Right? Speaking about a king being a servant. All right. See, a king, a servant that wasn't raised in nobility, once again, he has a mentality of selfishness at the majority of the time. All right. Or he's so overtaken by the splendor that he just gets consumed in his lust and his desire. And this is how Esau rules, man. All right. All he is thinking about is how much can I have and I consume. I don't give a damn about any of my subjects. I don't give a damn about my people. All right. Anybody else. All right. He doesn't care about those things. He's poisoning everything, man. He don't give a damn. But best believe that he's eating good. All right. Best believe that he's making sure that he's taking care of himself. But when it comes to the masses, man, he ain't even breaking off pennies to the masses compared to what he's receiving, man. All right. It says, "Blessed art thou, O land, when thy king is the son of nobles, and thy princes eat in due season for strength and not for drunkenness." Right now, I brought up a commentary on this, and I just want to read the Matthew Henry's, just a portion of that Ecclesiastes 10, 16 through 20. So it says, "The happiness of a land depends on the character of its rulers." Right now, what does that remind you of? The book of Proverbs. All right, Proverbs chapter 29 and verse 2. It says, "When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn." So why do the people rejoice when the righteous is in authority? Because the king that's sitting on the throne is thinking about the subjects. All right, he's thinking about the from the peasant, all right, to his right hand man. All right, he's thinking about how can he make things peaceful, how can he settle the kingdom, all right, how can he bring resources into his kingdom, so all right, there won't be any poor people, that everybody's well off, and so on and so forth. He's considering all those things, man. Okay, but a wicked king, he doesn't care about the benefit of the people, man. All right. Let me read that again. Proverbs 29 and 2. "When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn." And as we saw, in the scriptures with King Solomon in this kingdom, everybody was happy, man. All right. Let me go ahead and grab this First Kings chapter 10. I'm gonna go ahead and read the first 8 verses. It says, and when the queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord Yahweh, she came to prove him with hard questions. And she came to Jerusalem with a very great train with camels that bear spices and very much gold and precious stones. And when she was come to Solomon, she communed with him of all that was in her heart. And Solomon told her all her questions. There was not anything hid from the king which he told her not. And when the queen of Sheba had seen all Solomon's wisdom and the house that he had built, and the meat of his table, and the sitting of his servants, and the attendance of his ministers, and their apparel, and his cupbearers, and his ascent by which he went up unto the house of Yahweh, there was no more spirit in her. So she marveled at the ordering of his kingdom. All right. At the ordering of his kingdom, man. Okay. The decisions that he made behind closed doors to create efficient systems, she marveled at that, man. To where the cupbearers and so on and so forth, man, they were decked out, they looked good, they was happy, as we're going to read verse 6. And she said to the king, it was a true report that I heard in mine own land of thy acts and of thy wisdom. Howbeit I believed not the words until I came, and mine eyes had seen Salakia, and mine eyes had seen it. And behold, the half was not told me. Thy wisdom and prosperity exceeded the fame which I heard. Happy are thy men, happy are these thy servants, which stand continually before thee, and that hear thy wisdom. Now, you have at times where you might have a manager that's in authority, or we'll go back to using the king, and all the subjects are disgruntled, or the army is disgruntled because they're not getting paid enough, or this and that and the third, right? But in King Solomon's time, people were at peace. They were happy. Everybody was well taken care of. Everybody needed what they needed, or got what they needed, right? Had nothing to complain about, man. All right, and we're going back to that. The scripture says in the book of Psalms that there will be no complaining in our streets, so we'll have nothing to complain about. We'll lack for nothing. The scripture says in the book of Psalms, the Lord will withhold no good thing to those that love him, roughly paraphrasing it, man. All right. It says that we shall lack or want no good thing, roughly paraphrasing it, you know? So everything will be given unto us, man. And we're gonna know how to allocate the resources. We're gonna know how to use it, right? We ain't gonna be greedy to where we're taking from and from our own people. And nah, man. Nah. All right. Everything is gonna be ordered perfectly. Okay. Everybody is gonna be happy. Okay. Because in like it says in Sirach, the 10th chapter, man, the Lord is gonna set over the kingdom one that is profitable being Yahweh Shai, man. Okay, but just a glimpse of the kingdom is King Solomon's kingdom, man. All right, and this is what we're going back to. But this happens through wisdom being executed. All right, this happens through proper decision making, through the precepts, through the scriptures on properly managing affairs. And this starts off with us being able to properly manage ourselves and our own decision making, man. All right, it says, and that's all I'll read on that, man. All right. Let me see if I had anything else. And man, through the spirit, I'll end it right there. Like I said, I just want to kind of go through those things, through the spirit, and we're all being exercised in this, man. So I try and shift my mentality, whether I'm at work or whatever the case may be. All right, on having the mentality of the king on how to manage different things, looking at how the manager, how he's ruling over the people, seeing different things that he might do good and different things that he might do bad, and applying it in the precepts, you know, considering all these things, man. But hey, having that being said, Lord's what I was edifying and exhorting, and maybe brought some perspective, all right, to consider and moving in our daily lives as thinking as kings and priests, man. But having that being said, I'm gonna give all praises to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Kakurash, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect, pushing out this word in all sincerity and in truth. With that, I'm gonna say shalom.